What's up, everybody? I'm Jessekazam. Welcome back to another Escape From Tarkov video. In this video, we're doing another one of our advanced map guides, and we're talking about the lab, Terragroup Labs. Once again, with our advanced map guides, these fit somewhere in the middle. If you've got a few thousand hours in the game or you play labs a ton, you're probably not going to get a lot of new information here. But also, if you're brand new and you've never been to labs, I have a separate map guide for that. This is kind of somewhere in the middle, talking about spawn PvP and rotations, and hopefully a way to kind of up your game if you already have a few hundred hours into the game. With that being said, I do stream Escape From Tarkov on Twitch. All my links will be down below. I'd love to have you stop by and say hey. And if you liked the video, think about dropping a like or subscribing for more content like this. YouTube tells me that a ton of people that watch the videos aren't subscribed, and it helps me out a ton. So thank you so much to those that do that. But with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive right in. Now, Labs is a really interesting map, right? So if you already have some time in the game, you know that it's locked behind the key card. You know, you have to buy the key card from Therapist or off the flea market. It's an interesting map because there are players out there who know Life Labs. It's literally the only map that they play. And then there are players with hundreds of hours, even pushing 1,000 hours of gameplay, that have never actually set foot in labs. Aside from one or two quests, really, you don't have to go to labs to complete really many of the quests. And with its reputation of being where a lot of really experienced players go to throw down, and also in the past being pretty infested with cheaters, a lot of people have just chosen to stay away from it. So that being said, we've got kind of an array of players in Escape From Tarkov, some really experienced Tarkov players with no labs experience, some really experienced labs players that have played almost this exclusively. So once again, I'm going to try to provide value for just about everybody, but if you've never set foot in labs, no matter how experienced in Tarkov you are, you should probably check out my other video that breaks down where the spawns are, how the extractions work, and what raiders are, and that kind of stuff. So check that out. But as per usual, we'll start off talking about spawn PvP. This is one of the most important things for all the maps that I like to talk about once you get more experience with the game, is having to understand where other people are going to spawn and where those people are going to move to engage first, because a lot of the people that are just out for PvP, which is going to be a lot of labs players, they're going to be moving in on your location, so you need to kind of be aware of that. Now, this is Map Genie. I don't think it encompasses all the spawn points, because I know that I've spawned up on level 2, like in this area over here, in the elbow by the kitchen and stuff like that. But I will say the spawn, I would say in my opinion, the spawn PvP kind of mecca where almost it all goes down is this whole bottom side of the map on all 3 levels. So in the basement, you've got 2 buttons to push from raiders and an extract. Up here, you've got the black room with all the stims, the server room, the staircase. Up here, you've got green room. You've got the sanitar closet. You're close to the top of the server room. This area is oftentimes where a lot of people will congregate. You can spawn down here in the basement and either make your way up to any of the 3 levels. You can spawn over here by hangar. A lot of people like to push up into server because there's a LEDX spawn here and then work their way around to green room. You can spawn over here, which is kind of near the dome and the elbow leading to parking. A lot of times these people will push back. Like I said, you can spawn up top near the kitchen, and a lot of people will just push right across, check if the hangar button's open, and then move in. But this ends up being a really hot zone for PvP outside of spawn, even though there's not a whole lot of spawns directly inside of it. And that's because of its insane concentration of everything, really. There's buttons to call raiders. You're close to an extract down at the bottom. There is a high density of loot. Black room can get a ton of stims. Green room, you can get a ton of stims, defibs. I think even an intel spawn in there, LEDX spawns. There's a LEDX spawn near the server. There's raiders that can spawn you're near the hangar gate. It's just kind of everything. So this becomes where a lot of people right out of spawn push towards, which means if you spawn near this area, you have to either get away or be very aware of what's going to be coming. This is just kind of seems to be the place on the map where there's always something going on. Outside of that, the spawn PvP isn't too crazy. You can spawn, if you spawn, underground, you kind of have a lot of freedom to move. I don't get into a lot of fights underground really quickly out of spawn. So if you spawn in the underground, well, of course the whole map is underground, but in the tunnel system, you can kind of carefully pick where you want to go, where you want to pop up, and that's nice. You can spawn over here near the parking gate, and sometimes these two spawns if there's somebody that spawns in this stairwell or in the elbow, and somebody that spawns either like all the way back over here or near red room or something like that. Sometimes in this elbow there can be some quick PvP or around the parking gate button. But the only place I find that you're really in danger as soon as you spawn is anywhere near this kind of bottom half of the map, near green room, black room, the underground buttons right there. As far as just like beyond the spawn and PvP hot zones, this continues to be a hot zone the entire raid. I have found a lot of success recently playing labs just avoiding this whole area completely, because I feel like a lot of times that's where a lot of the really sweaty people are, or you get somebody who's they're cleaning up a fight. You're just never really safe there because there's always fighting. There's always somebody else coming to check it out and then trying to loot those bodies. And then if you go and try and check it out and loot those bodies, now not being safe isn't necessarily a bad thing. If you're in it for some PvP, if you're trying to sharpen those skills or get some loot, this is the place to be. But if you avoid this whole kind of green room area, unless you have to go there, it's not that you're just going to be farming raiders. There's still plenty of PvP to be had, but it's going to be, you're going to be getting into engagements in a lot different places. And a lot of times in my experience, those engagements last a little bit longer. Whereas over here, it's just kind of always something that's going on. And that's just the current meta, the current way that Labs is played. So it's definitely good to learn that area because it may shift. They could tweak one LEDX spawn and move it over here or something, and now the whole meta shifts. But currently, that's kind of how it's going on. But other PvP hot zones are going to be, of course, around either loot or raiders. So the parking gate up around here, you can get a lot of times these kind of hallways will shoot across the parking garage to each other. And the hangar gate as well. There's tons of fighting that goes on in the hangar gate and the kitchen up here. So the hangar, you've got right here, you've got this above the hangar gate platform, and right here you've got the freezer, this hallway, the staircase here, and the kitchen area right here. And we can kind of zoom in on this. And this area tends to be a pretty decent PvP hot zone as well. I think it just kind of naturally evolved to being that. There isn't a high concentration of loot in the freezer or in the kitchen, but I think because a lot of people like to hit the button and then come back, you're just in a pretty tactically good spot here because you can bounce back around the elbow if you need to. You can go downstairs if you need to. You can use the freezer as shelter. You can cut through the kitchen and just out. So there's a lot of ways to escape a fight. There are raider spawns that are up here and downstairs. So you're close to raiders, you're close to an extract, and there's a lot of ways to kind of dip in and out of this area. So this ends up being a pretty decent place. There are people who just camp the freezer and they'll just wait in there for people to walk by or for the raid to die down and then come out, which, you know, is kind of cheesy, but you can totally do that. But that ends up being one of the PvP hotspots as the raid progresses as well. Other than that, the kind of beauty of Labs is that you can really get into a fight from everywhere. It's so, these top two levels are so open. You can engage from distance, you can engage close. It is for the most part a more close quarters map. But there's just an insane amount of, I think, flankability. And I think that's one of the biggest PvP things to talk about for Labs, especially if you have a little bit of experience and you're trying to sharpen those skills, is learning how to maneuver this map especially. Now, I've said that about all the maps in Escape from Tarkov, but Labs is absolutely insane. The free flow form of the whole map, of the absolute insane amount of staircases up and down from the levels to the manager's office to the like little cat statue room here, all of the back tunnels behind the medical bays, all of the, you've got this entire underground system that if you master, you can literally pop up almost anywhere on the map. The flankability is insane. So I think learning how to maneuver well on Labs, I think that the golden rule of like, don't re-peek, you know what I mean? Is just super important on Labs. You don't ever really have to re-peek. You are very rarely ever in a situation on Labs where you don't have any other option but to re-peek an enemy. And I found some crazy success by just picking a flank and executing it, and just making sure that my enemy never knows where I am. So if you want to PvP on labs, I would highly, highly, highly recommend, even if you've got a few hundred hours in the game, even if you've got a few hundred labs raids under your belt, go in offline and just learn how to maneuver the map. Because step one, you know, the other guide that I talked about is just learning, okay, where are the points of interest? What are the extracts? How do they work? How do raiders spawn? But that next step is really learning how to get from anywhere you are to anywhere you want to be 5 or 6 different ways, because you can really cause confusion in your enemies. You can make them think that you've broken away from a fight and get a long angle on them. The best players, if you watch them, are just, they don't even have to think. They're just maneuvering from one level to another, around something, using something as flank, using raiders to flush out enemies by clicking a button. You can absolutely make some insane, super fun, super epic plays on labs, but it all comes down to maneuverability. If you just see an enemy and you just get caught throwing shots back and forth, repeaking, most likely if you're PvPing with anybody that has a decent amount of experience in labs, they're just going to end up coming up behind you, below you, above you, or something, and killing you, or just flushing you out with a bajillion nades, because that happens all the time on labs as well. So I think that's an important thing if we're talking about PvP, is the maneuverability of the map. The underground can get very, very confusing very quickly, but if you learn that, I mean, I still struggle with it, but if you can master it and know where you can go downstairs and then where you can pop back up, you'll be surprised that even really long flanks that take 2 or 3 minutes to execute, you're going to catch those people off guard. A lot of people are just going to turtle up and they're going to just try to like win that fight. Or the great stall of labs is all of the loot. If you engage with somebody and you break away, most likely there's dead raiders around. Maybe they killed your buddy. Maybe you killed their buddy. And they are going to take time to loot. Nobody wants to go in labs and leave without anything to show for it, especially because the card costs so much money. So people are going to make sure that they get out with some loot, which means you have extra time to make a flank because they're going to be looting and you can oftentimes catch that person looting. So, that is, I guess, my tips for PvP. The most common pathing is really just, I don't know. The most common pathing is people sticking around the edges of the map. Once again, just the insane up and down that goes on right here. There's an extract down here, and you've got the black room and the green room. So people are just constantly going up and down, up server, dropping through the hole in server, down to the basement where the button is. There's a lot of verticality going on right there. Other than that, people are just making their way most of the time on the outskirts of the map, coming down under red room, around here in this elbow through parking, trying to stick to the edges of the map as often as possible. This sometimes means that you can run through the middle of the map pretty freely if raiders haven't spawned yet. As weird as and as counterintuitive as that sounds, you oftentimes can. If you need to make a quick flank, just run straight through the middle of the map. If raiders are spawning, that can be very dangerous, but people love to stick to the outside of the map. And there's no really just like common point A to point B. You know, this isn't like customs where everybody has to move from one side of the map to the other to extract. So that means there's no insanely common pathing, because some people might spawn near an extract, stick in that area for a really long time, try to kill some stuff, loot, and leave. Or you could have players traversing the entirety of the map looking for PvP. So, but the big tip is most of the time people are just sticking to the outskirts of the map. Now, the loot on labs is absolutely insane, as I'm sure you know. I mean, there's millions of rubles worth of loot between, you've got like the rare treasure loot spawns in the manager's office and in the red room and stuff like that. You've got some miscellaneous like gold chains and lines and stuff that can spawn around the map. Here in the dead center of the map, on the kind of bottom half, is an insane amount of tech loot. If you're looking for a specific run, Pestly's done, I think, a few YouTube videos on that, but the dome has lead X's, there's intels, defibs, stims are everywhere in labs, which are great because they're often just one slot things that can sell for 20 or 30,000 rubles a piece to therapists. There is an absolute insane amount. If you want a breakdown of like the keys and stuff like that and all the lab cards, once again, there are other people that have guides like that, but just know that even without any key cards, there's tons of loot to be had. You can't talk about labs and loot without talking about the raiders. Of course, that is a great way to get loot. Grenades and meds abound on the raiders. You can oftentimes get good magazines, decent guns, great armor. They can sometimes have class 5 armors. I haven't seen a raider with a slick armor in a really, really long time. I honestly don't know if they still spawn, but you can still get Gen 4s or the redut armors or something like that off of them. Good helmets, good weapons, good attachments. And if you really min-max it by doing attachments and unloading mags and stuff like that, even without any keys, even without any looting really, you can make it out with a ton of valuable stuff. Yeah, your labs raids can be insanely profitable if you know how to loot well and if you know where to hit. Like we said, though, you don't have to be hitting all these places in the middle of the map. That is where most of the good static loot is going to be, of course, though. There's no boss on labs as of yet. I don't know if there ever will be, but there is no scav boss or anything. And if I would have to make some recommendations on kits and stuff like that, there's basically a few ways you can go. I'm sure you already know, but insurance doesn't work on labs. So some people say, okay, well, that means I need to bring in my best gear because I need to give myself the best chance to survive. And sometimes I do that. I bring in class 5 armor, really expensive guns, and stuff like that. And then the other side of things is I should bring in really low tier gear, risk not a lot, and then give maximum potential for the come up, because I can basically ditch most of my gear because it was cheap and I didn't care about it. I can put on some raider gear or some PvP gear, loot up, and I'm leaving with maximum profit. I think both work. It just comes down to your play style and what you kind of want to do on labs. I just really enjoy going in and surviving. For me, like the per ruble profitability isn't as important for me, especially late in wipe. I'm just trying to have fun. I'm trying to get in cool engagements. I'm trying to better myself at PvP. So I end up going with decent gear most of the time that I don't plan on dropping. Of course, if my armor gets zeroed and I find a raider with some Gen 4, I'm going to be dropping my armor. But I go in not really planning to ditch my stuff, more planning to keep my kit and just kind of run it and take out as much as I can. So the recommended kits is just kind of whatever you feel comfortable doing. The paywall definitely changes things up. It makes a death streak on labs feel really rough. And it makes you, when you come out with a survive, you're not making as much money as you think you are sometimes. So that comes down to you. I think tons of meds are important. Good quality painkillers. I like Propofol because it heals and it's a painkiller for 300 seconds. Pop in a Vaseline or a Golden Star or something like that, because if a raider catches you and you need to get to cover, that's a thing. They can catch you oftentimes and you don't know where they are. They're down in the middle there and you're like, where the heck did that shot come from? And I just need to get to cover or need to get to prone. And if you get your leg blacked out, that can oftentimes lead to your death. So good quality meds, good ammo, I would think is in labs is almost more important than the gun you're using, even an ADAR or a Vepr Hunter or something. As long as you're using ammo that you can 1-tap to the head, 2-3 tap to the chest, most armors, that's going to be, in my opinion, a worthy investment in labs. So that's kind of it. I mean, those are just the general tips talking about PvP, tips for PvP, tips for traversing the map. I think that's the most important thing. Take the time to master the underground tunnels and just how to move from one spot to the other. I hope that this helped. I hope whether you're just trying to get as much information about labs before you go in, or if you spent some time in there, you like the map, but you keep dying and you just want to get better at the map, no matter where you kind of sit. I hope this helped explain a little bit about how the map flows, and hopefully gets you excited to get into some more labs raids in Escape from Tarkov. Thank you, as always, for taking the time to check out this video. If you have any questions about the video, or if there's anything you'd like to add to the conversation, please comment that down below. Once again, if you like the video, think about dropping it a like or subscribing for more content like this. I'm always trying to create content to help shorten the learning curve of Tarkov and get you in your raids having fun as soon as possible. And liking and subscribing helps me out a ton. I do stream Escape from Tarkov on Twitch. All my links will be down below. And we also have an awesome Discord pushing 3,000 people. We've got Tarkov veterans. We've got newer players. We've got channels for you to find people to play with, ask questions if you need help, or get people to help run quests with you. All that kind of stuff is there. It's an awesome place to be. Thank you again so much for stopping by, and I will see y'all on the next one.